One of the four pillars of fatherhood that I feel like is so important is one that I think we tend to stay away from or shy away from as men, and that's the power of community, right? I think being a mindful father and being a dad that truly wants to show up differently than how maybe your dad showed up for you is being okay with being open to community. And that means that you have to be okay with being vulnerable with sharing what you're going through with other dads. And that's what I want to talk about today. And today's talk is really inspired by some conversations I've been having with some people, some other men and fathers that I've met in certain spaces. Particularly, I'm on a competitive rowing team. I know, who would have ever thought? And a couple people I've met for the first time this season are fathers. And so, in typical, like, I'm a dad, I have a journal for dads, I have a YouTube channel and a podcast for dads. It's almost second nature for me to express that to them. But then I realize I go into these conversations sometimes with my business on top of mind. But then I realize, like, it's really not a that's when I leave these conversations, I'm like, I'll give you a free journal. Right? When I leave these conversations, I'm like, you want to jump on a Zoom and do a session, like no charge, like that's fine. Because these conversations, I may go into them thinking about my business, but I leave not even thinking about business. I leave thinking about, wow, that dude knows exactly how I feel. Wow, that dude now knows that someone else knows exactly how he feels. And I think that's what we need as men. That's what we need as fathers, is to be able to be like, yo, I'm not alone in this. When I first started my channel, I spoke about this as well, but I this time right here just feels a little more palpable because, like, I'm literally having these new experiences with fathers who I'm talking to. And the good thing is I'm talking to dads who are teenage kids and also new fathers. And what I've come to realize is it doesn't matter the age of the child. We all go through the same things. We may be perceiving it different based off if you have a 2-year old or if you have a 14-year old, you may perceive what you're going through differently, but something inside of you is still the same as the guy who has the 14-year-old. We all feel like we are parenting how we were parented, and we all feel like the relationship that we have with our own fathers or father figures, we feel like that is impacting how we are showing up with our children. We all feel this way. And, I was talking to a guy yesterday at rowing practice, and he has a 2-year-old daughter. And so we start talking about this stuff. And midway through the conversation, right? Like, so I was telling him about how I want to potentially get to a space in my life where I can put myself first and put some of my priorities first over what my son has going on. That in itself, even to be okay with expressing that, because the dad guilt is heavy when I even say that, right? But it's okay to want to put yourself first. You know what I mean? And as we know as parents, we have made the ultimate sacrifice. And so obviously, I've made the ultimate sacrifice, and I've sacrificed for 14 years of parenting for both my son and my daughter. But within the ultimate sacrifice, you have to make time for yourself, and you have to make time to be your best version of yourself. And that looks like putting yourself first sometimes. And I was sharing with another dad how I have this urge to want to, like, put myself first at times, and I feel bad for that. I was telling him my son is a terrific basketball player, and he plays basketball year round. And I was telling him that even when he's not with me, like when it's not my parenting time, I drive like an hour and a half to his basketball games every single time, whether it's a weekend that I am not with him or if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday that I'm not with him during the week. If he has a game on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it doesn't matter. And now that I'm in this competitive rowing thing, I'm like, oh man, like I want to go to some of my races, right? And because he plays basketball year round, there's rarely a weekend where he doesn't have a game. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's been playing competitive basketball since maybe like kindergarten, first grade, and he's been playing up since then. And I was like, yo, all every season, winter, summer, spring, and fall, every single season, if my son has multiple games every single week, if you total it up, I don't even know. He's played over 2,000 basketball games in his life. He's 14 and he's been at this since he was 6. Let's say it's 1,500 basketball games. I've been to 1,498 of them. Like I've only missed 2 games in his entire career of playing basketball from first grade to 8th grade. And this happens year round and I've only missed 2 games. And I'm like, yo, that like I'm like, bro, you feel me? Like, is that enough? Like, have I done enough to be able to be like, yo, I have a rowing competition that I really want to go to. I really want to be there for my teammates. And you're with your mom this weekend, and I would love to come to your game. I know you want me there, but I want to do this for myself. And I'm talking to him about this, and he's like, yo, you're good, bro. He's like, you seem like a present dad. Like, I don't think missing a few games is going to make your son not like you. But that it was just so cool to be talking to another father about this because I can talk to like my family, I can talk to a female friend, like, but I could talk to another mom, but it's just not the same. You know what I mean? It's like looking at another man and me being vulnerable enough to express that I'm feeling this guilt. And for another man to look at me and be like, bro, like, you're good. And so like that power of community is everything. And I met another guy who he has a kid that plays competitive sports, and so him and I are talking about how the schedules are crazy, and we're bonding on shared interests, but we're also bonding on shared chaos. You know what I mean? Because we're like, yeah, bro, the weekends are shot because he got to play here, he got to play there, and I'm like, bro, I know how you feel. I think these type of conversations can also, once bonds get tighter, can also lead deeper into the things that as men and as fathers that we kind of keep to ourselves, do we internalize. Like even like I'll be honest with you, even this channel, right? I have this YouTube channel and I've realized that majority of the people who comment on my channels are women, they're moms. On my videos, I mean, majority of people who comment on my videos are moms. And I sometimes I think to myself like, well, why is that? And I'm very appreciative of any parent that this information helps. But I also think like, well, why aren't the dads, right, who is truly geared to it, helps all parents, but why are dads not saying anything? Like, am I just not reaching them? And I have a couple dads who comment, but for the most part, 90% of my engagement, especially like my deep engagement, are from moms or from women. And I'm like, well, why is that? And I think I'm realizing because this whole being okay with putting yourself out there as a dad, being okay with being vulnerable to other men is something that we're still working on as a collective consciousness, as the male species, I feel like. Like I think dads will listen to this and really sit with it and relate to it and resonate. but they might not say anything. And I think, the a more feminine energy is like, yo, yeah, this is how I feel, man. That was great emotional expression. Like I feel like this, I feel like that. Let's talk about that. And as men, we hold that in. We internalize it. And we do that with everything. We do that even with obstacles we're going through life. And I just feel like one of the things I want to do is get away from that. And that's why in this journal, every time I do a video, I'm supposed to like talk about my journal and my coaching, and it really feels, I don't know, it feels inauthentic almost, because it's like obviously I have the links in the description, and but these talks are to provide value, and so I don't want people to feel like the value, now you feel like you have to support in this way. But like I create these things because I just know how helpful they were to me. And so it's kind of like I'll pitch them to you, but I don't really, it's just, I don't know, it's like if you feel like it kind of thing, you know what I mean? And so there's my terrible attempt at probably pitching the journal. Before I do all of these talks, I just ask, like the universe and highest level of conscious awareness. I'm like, just let this talk be helpful to all beings. And that's truly what matters. And so, yeah, man, but I'm bringing the journal up because the journal was created into four pillars. One pillar is community, a second pillar is self reflection, a third pillar is mindfulness, and a fourth one is strengthening relationships, like the bond with your kids. And so, the community pillar prompts that I wrote in there, I'm like, yo, imagine if when I first started being a father, like if I was actually thinking about the importance of leaning on other dads and how that could help me in all the things I'm going through. It's another thing we got to realize as men, why community aspect is important is because all the things that you're going through as a father, we know so many other dads are going through that. So why not just reach out to a fellow father, you know what I mean? And talk about how you feel. And it starts with getting over this fear of being vulnerable to other men. And I guess that's truly what I really want this video to speak on and to resonate, to you to resonate with, is like, yo, I should be okay with being vulnerable to somebody who looks like me, right? I should be okay with that. Yeah, that's it for this week. And I would highly recommend you to subscribe to my newsletter because I write about these things every week as well in article form. And so if you rather read about these things, definitely subscribe to my newsletter, because I tend to let my creative juices flow in a different direction as well when it comes to writing. So if you prefer that way, you can subscribe to my newsletter and check out the 365 Dad Journal if you feel the calling to. And I'm enjoying this process of creating this channel and reaching my people through mindfulness. And so it's been great. And so I catch you next week.